$90,000. A brand new pickup truck. Fully loaded. Financed. Driven off the lot with that feeling that you made the right call. Today, that same truck is being dumped at auction for $16,000. Not in 10 years. Not after a lifetime of miles. Right now. While you're watching this video, it's happening in real time. Across the entire country. Dealers are panicking. Auctions are flooded with vehicles nobody wants to buy at the price the owner was expecting. And if you're thinking about purchasing a pickup, or worse, you already have one financed, what's happening in this market concerns you directly. Because this is not a normal seasonal price dip. This is not the usual post-summer softening you see every year. This is a collapse. Structural. Progressive. And most people haven't figured out yet that it's already begun. So how do you get to this point? How does a vehicle worth nearly six figures lose over 70% of its value in such a short period of time? To understand that, you have to go back a few years, to that moment when the market was completely flipped from what it is today. During the pandemic, supply chains froze. Factories slowed down. Inventory vanished from dealership lots. And suddenly, a pickup truck wasn't just a vehicle anymore. It had become a scarce asset. Something you couldn't find. Something people wanted at any cost. And when something becomes scarce, one very predictable thing happens. The price goes up. Dealers were adding markups of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on top of sticker price. And buyers paid. Because interest rates were low, financing was easy, and the fear of missing out was driving decisions more than logic ever could. $50,000 trucks became $70,000 trucks. $70,000 became $90,000. And nobody stopped to ask the most important question of all. The one that should have been obvious. What happens when supply comes back to normal? Because sooner or later, always, without exception, it does. And that is exactly what's happening right now. Inventory is back. Lots are full. Factories are running at full capacity again. But demand? Demand has deflated. And here's where the real problem lives. Interest rates have risen significantly over the past few years. Monthly payments on an $80,000 pickup financed over 72 months have become unsustainable for a huge portion of potential buyers. People stop buying, or push the decision back. Meanwhile, thousands of owners who bought at the peak are realizing that the value of their truck has collapsed, and they're trying to exit their position before things get worse. The result? More sellers in the market. Fewer willing buyers. And when you have that combination, more supply, less demand, prices don't fall gradually. They drop. Fast. And without warning. Let's make this concrete with a real example. Picture a fully loaded pickup. Powerful engine, crew cab, every available option. Purchased at the peak of the market for close to $90,000. The owner signed a 72-month financing agreement. The payments were high. But at the time, it felt manageable. Today, that same truck shows up at auction. Nobody bids $70,000. Nobody bids $50,000. Nobody even bids $30,000. The hammer falls at $16,000, and the owner still owes $40,000, $50,000, maybe $60,000 to the lender. This is not a made-up story designed for dramatic effect. This is a scenario playing out every single day, in every state across every major used vehicle market in the country. The losses are real. The consequences are real. And the number of people caught in this situation is far higher than what the official data is showing yet. But the problem doesn't stop with individual owners. When asset values collapse this rapidly, the shockwaves move through the entire financial system. Banks start tightening their lending criteria. If a vehicle that was worth $90,000 is now worth $16,000, the collateral backing that loan has essentially evaporated. Lenders know this, and they respond by becoming more cautious, more selective, more restrictive, which makes it harder to buy, even for people who are in a healthy financial position. Dealers, on the other hand, are sitting on inventory they acquired at inflated prices, and now can't move without taking a loss on every single transaction. The broader used vehicle market starts to destabilize, and consumers get caught in the middle. Negative equity, owing more on a loan than the vehicle is worth, becomes the norm, not the exception. Trade-ins become nearly impossible, loan defaults start climbing, and what looked like an isolated problem in the pickup truck market reveals itself for what it actually is: a wider fracture in the system, with trucks as the first visible signal of something shifting beneath the surface. Not everyone is hit equally, though. In fact, the difference between who loses and who wins in this moment comes down to a very specific set of variables. If you bought at the peak with a long-term loan and little money down, you're in a vulnerable position. Your vehicle is worth less than you owe, and every month that passes doesn't automatically improve that situation. If you're sitting on liquidity, on the other hand, if you have no debt tied to an overvalued vehicle and you have patience, this market could represent a real, concrete opportunity. Because while some people are being forced to sell at a loss, others have the chance to buy at prices that 3 years ago would have seemed completely impossible. Same market, completely opposite outcomes. The difference isn't luck, it's positioning. And that's exactly why understanding what's happening right now, before it stabilizes, matters so much. So what should actually do? If you already own a pickup and you're sitting in negative equity, the first thing to do is resist the urge to panic sell. Selling at a loss when the market is already falling can lock in a loss that, with time, might shrink. Understand your exact position first. How much you owe, what your vehicle is genuinely worth today, and what the gap actually is. Only from there can you make a rational decision. If you're thinking about buying, my guidance is simple. Wait. The market has not found its floor yet. Prices are still moving down. Patience right now has a real, measurable economic value. And when you do decide to move, don't just look at the vehicle price. Look at the financing rate. Look at the loan term. Look at the total cost of ownership over time. Because in a moving market, the structure of your purchase matters just as much, if not more, than the sticker price. Looking ahead, expect more volatility in the near term. More price drops, more inventory, pressure. The next 6 to 12 months will be the most difficult for those already inside the market, and the most interesting for those waiting on the outside. In the medium term, the market will stabilize, but at valuations that are structurally lower than the 2021 and 2022 peak. Those prices are not coming back. They were an anomaly, not a new normal. In the long term, what we'll see is a reset, a return to fundamentals, where the value of a vehicle is determined by its real utility, not by the artificial scarcity of an exceptional historical moment. And that brings us to the final thought, maybe the most important one of all. Moments like this feel chaotic from the inside. They feel unpredictable, alarming, even unfair for the people who ended up here without ever looking for trouble. But these moments teach us something fundamental about how markets work, and about how human decisions behave under pressure. Markets don't go up forever. Cycles exist for a reason. And when the correction arrives, it always exposes the difference between what had real value and what was inflated by the enthusiasm of the moment. What we're seeing right now in the pickup truck market is not random. It is the direct result of decisions made at the peak of a cycle, in a climate of collective excitement with the illusion that prices would hold forever. Now the cycle is turning in the opposite direction. For some, that means real and painful losses. For others, it means an opportunity that hasn't existed in years. The key, in either case, is not to react emotionally. It's to understand what's actually happening, to position yourself with intention, and to remember that in every major market shift, the people who come out ahead are not necessarily the ones who had the most money at the start. They're the ones who had the most clarity, and right now, that clarity is worth a whole lot more than any $90,000 pickup truck.